the intention. Cool. So week 2 is Air Week. So yeah, week 2 is Air Week. So we'll all just start by taking a sigh of relief. So just taking a deep breath in and releasing. Yeah. So breath is a key player to air, because in our internal world, air represents our breath. So in our senses, it represents touch, it represents feeling. So if you think about it with air, we can feel the breath entering our body. And it's so powerful. Externally, it's represented by the wind. So we feel the wind on our skin. The wind has this like poetic nature where it can carry words around and carry sounds, and you whisper to the wind. And in Ayurveda, air and breath is known as prana. So it's known as like the vital force. And in Chinese medicine, it's known as qi. And in more like Western eclectic medicine, it's known as the vital force, which is so key, because when you start looking into breath is life. And after doing like breath mastery course, I've been blown away by the breath. So I'll share a little bit of my like musings around it, and how, when we think of consciousness and what is consciousness. And it's interesting because I've thought about that for a long time, about what consciousness is. But if you ask most people don't actually think about that all the time. I'm pretty sure you guys probably have. But it's, when you think about it, it's like what makes a seed open? What makes the seedling grow towards the sun? What makes the leaves move towards the sun? How does it know to find the light? And what makes a vine grow up a tree, and how does the vine know where the other tree is to wrap around? And that's like a really good analogy to what consciousness is. And then science will tell you like there's different reasons for that. It's growing towards the light or whatever like that. And when you look at science and how they're explaining life, and it's like into a molecular level, into an atomic level, where you've got a neutron and a proton with electron orbiting around it. It's like, cool, well that's cool. It's showing that everything's vibrating, but what makes the electron spin is, well, it's consciousness. So why I'm talking about this within air is because when we're not paying attention to our breath, what's breathing us? And it's consciousness. So we breathe without even thinking about it, and that's being breathed by consciousness. So if you like, that's really like being, or very like yin-like, if you look at it. And essentially we can practice breath awareness to lay witness to consciousness participating. And the beautiful thing about that is that it's the only thing that we can actually do to interact with consciousness directly. So we can be aware of our breath and be like, wow, something's breathing me. I'm not actually controlling this. And it's interesting to speak to some people about this, because you tell them to be aware of their breath and they stop breathing. It's like they get in the way. They're not just able to witness. So it takes a bit of practice to be able to witness yourself doing something without trying to control it or trying to do something. So that's one of the first things, is to really practice breath awareness. So being aware of how we're breathing in different situations. And the next one is actually conscious breathing. So this is where we take charge of our breath and we start breathing in different techniques. So this is like what I do in my breathwork classes, is actually take people on a journey of breathing in different ways and holding the breath and then exploring in between the breaths. So it's cool because I'm one of those people that has looked into consciousness and spirituality for a number of years, and it also gets to a point where it can become quite fluffy, and on the other side it's like people just aren't spiritual at all, and it's like this balance between the mystique and the mundane. You got to like try find this balance, and for me I finally found it with the breath, where it's like if anyone wants to claim that they're conscious, it's like they must be consciously breathing. So it's that one thing, it's when you start participating, that's when you're really present, is when you're present with your breath. And within like high performance stuff now, they're talking a lot about like the flow state and things like this, and it all comes down to breath, like breath awareness. If you look at high performing athletes and high performing sports teams, and even like the military and like Navy SEALs, it all comes down to them focusing on our breath, and they're not actually speaking about it because it takes away that competitive edge. So it's sort of like a best kept secret. So during air, we want to like really become friends and become more aware with our breath in as much as we can. So this is really going to allow us to tap in more so than last week as far as what wants to happen. Now it's like, how does it want to happen? How does it want to breathe that through me? So this is what we're wanting to start to connect into. So the practices are, really when we're looking at breath as life, we want to look at the attention to breath and awareness of breath. So paying attention to your breath is like when you're really excited, just pay attention to your breath. Just see how you're breathing that makes you excited. Like, what sort of breath is that? And if you're upset, how are you breathing? Because what you can do is, when you can become aware of the different states you're in and how that relates to the way you're breathing, you can really take control of situations. So when you consciously breathe, it's like it becomes a practice that you're always checking in with how am I breathing? How am I breathing? How am I breathing? So then a situation might happen, and straight away, before you actually react, you're like, how am I breathing? And then straight away you're like, oh, this is how I want to be breathing. So I'll take a sigh of relief, or I'll do something like that. And it just allows you to really remain present and conscious opposed to reacting. So it's really interesting to pay attention to see how we're breathing in different situations. And the other one is, just breath awareness. So that's like even when you're just sitting, and you might sit for a few minutes, like in meditation, and you're just being aware of your breath. So there's that gentle inhale and there's the gentle exhale. And how are you aware that you're aware of it? If that makes sense. So are you aware of your breath because you can feel the coolness in your nose on the inhale and the warmth on the exhale? Or are you noticing your chest rising? Or do you notice like your body, like circulation moving? Like, in what ways do you become aware of the breath, and how can you become aware of the breath? And what happens when you become aware of the breath? So one of my favorite things to do is, when I'm walking, is to actually become aware of my breath. And just be aware of, like, I'm walking and breathing, and just noticing the breath. And what I straight away find is I start to feel consciousness moving through me. I start to feel my hands tingling. I start to feel my arms buzzing. So all of a sudden I'm actually more aware. I'm more conscious within my body because I'm aware of the breath. And essentially, where your awareness goes, consciousness flows. So we have consciousness plus breath essentially is consciousness. So the more we can focus in on it, it's like doubling up on that consciousness, if that makes sense. Consciousness is quite an interesting topic to talk about in general because it's fractaline, it's within everything. But within that, one of my favorite things is to inhale love. And essentially when we're coming down to breath, and breath being life, it's really cool because they say that life begins when we take our first breath. So they say in astrology that when we're born and we take our first breath, that the entire universe pauses and we breathe in. On that first inhale, we're breathing in the signatures of where the planets are, where the stars are, what's happening in the universe, and we breathe that in with our first breath, and that's what gives us our like galactic signature or our astrology. So that's why astrology sort of links in with that. So we breathe in that moment on that minute, and that's what makes us us. And now we're continuing in with the song and going on with it. And then to exhale with gratitude. So exhaling all that has been and just being like, thank you for everything that's been. So we're ready for the next go. And essentially that's like the last thing we do. So in a lot of like Vedic scripts and people who have sat with people who passed, it's always like there's this and it's like that's how someone goes peacefully. You know, it's that last exhale. So it's almost like how consciousness leaves our body is through that breath as well. And it'd be interesting, you can probably go quite deep into that if people hold their breath and they die, or how do like souls get trapped in the body, and you know. So the breath, again, the more we can connect in with every breath, being I'm inhaling love and I'm exhaling gratitude, it will really lead us into that life where every single moment is a new moment to be appreciated. And how do we become present in that? Is to be fully open and expansive in our inhale for that moment, and completely relax and let whatever go, like let it all go. And that's why how we can be present for each moment. So that's why I really love the sigh of relief, which is the it's like next. Like our body already does it every time we in intense situations. So if we pay attention to how consciousness breathes us, we can also use those tools to clear ourselves and to work through things. So that's one thing with the sigh of relief, is if we breathe like that more often, we're actually clearing a lot of past stuff and present stuff, and we're just keeping our body at optimal. Because you can think, how many times have you stopped yourself from sighing, or how many times have you stopped yourself from yawning? So there, like consciousness was working through us, and we didn't yawn because we'd think that someone would think we're bored with them, or if we sighed that it would make a scene. So we actually have this like built up sighs and these built up yawns that need to come out. So consciously breathing is a good way to really move this stuff through. So the second topic is intention. So intention in an ever-changing reality is really cool, because I have a saying that change is inevitable and transformation is a choice. So in air is where we really start to make that choice to transform. So it's like setting an intention isn't so much about just saying the affirmation, it's about putting ourselves at the end result. So also really embodying it. So if we want something, or if we're doing something, like how do we flow and move in that in every moment, so that we feel like we're actually living that manifestation right now, in that moment, in that breath. That's really the intention, because the universe is constantly changing. So to actually utilize intention is where we can pave our way through it, because it's almost like there's just these random changes happening all the time. And if you're setting an intention, it would change in your favor. Really, like the odds are for you if we do it. And the more we actually get embodied by it and actually live that, and the universe believes us and we can be the right condition for the universe to give us what we want. So air week is a good one for that, because essentially when you look at the law of cause and effect, which is that every cause has an effect and every effect has a cause. So again, this is a principle that is science, but it's also in the Hermetic principles. So it's been known for thousands and thousands of years, like all the way back to like Hermes Trismegistus, and like Thoth in Egyptian times. That's like where the Hermetic principles like essentially come from, been passed down. So this law is again essentially that if you look at the big picture of like the mainstream, it's like most people are just being affected. They go home, they watch the news tells them something, and they go, oh yeah, and then they react, and they start acting that way. So it's actually just an effect. So what we can do is actually be part of a cause, actually cause the change, which is all these things like setting intentions and really connecting in with it. So what I have there is like effective spells. So these are like fun ways to manifest and to play around, and have a play with like wild and crazy intentions, and just see what manifests and what doesn't manifest, and it helps you to get clear on what you really want to transform when we come into fire. So even if you think about spells, right? Like when we go to school, what's one of the first thing we're taught is spelling. Yeah? So we're taught spells. So we're these magical beings that go to school and they teach us spells. But then magic is separate, right? But really, they're teaching us how to speak and how to use our words so that we can also continue to be an effect of their cause. So we can keep, with our words, with our intentions, with the way we think, keep solidifying the reality that certain people with power are putting down through to us. And this isn't good or bad, it's just some people are using the laws to their benefit and some people aren't even aware of them. So for effective spells, I created this little group diagram, which is like intention, feeling, and breath. And if you guys have a piece of paper, just draw it in a triangle, because triangles like transformation. So it's like a triangle for transformation of intention on one side, feeling on one side, and breath on the other side. So what this means is like with your intention, to be clear with your intention. So stating the intention as a positive affirmation. So when you really embody it, you want to bring it in the present moment. So not like you want to be able to say, I have this now. So say it in that way. Like I now have a tasty chocolate bar, for example. It's like I physically have it now. I'm at that end result. So being clear with what it is you're casting. You think of like Harry Potter, and when he wasn't saying the right intention or he wasn't saying the right spell, the magic doesn't work. So you really want to practice it and also pay attention to the ones that work and the ones that don't. So you can actually keep a little spell book, if you want, of like positive affirmations that have really worked. Because these affirmations will build up and the potency of them will build up as you go along. So yeah, I'd love to see if you guys do end up keeping a spell book. The second one is feeling. So it's actually really feeling that intention happening now. So feeling it into your body. What does it feel like? What is the experience within your body in this moment? That's what you want to bring. You want to bring that in. And then the third is the breath. So the breath can be used in two ways. One, once you set the intention and you're feeling it, just bring your awareness to your breath. So you just be bringing more consciousness to your body, and then you can really continue to state that affirmation and feel it while consciousness is flowing through you. So the same consciousness that's in you, breathing you, is the same consciousness that's opening that seed of the flower and manifesting something new, and participating in the unfolding of creation with the elements. So the more that consciousness is flowing through you and you're reflecting on your intention and the feeling, the more consciousness in general does actually align with your intention, if that makes sense. The other way you can do it is before you cast your spell or set your intention, is to take a few deep breaths, inhaling love, exhaling gratitude, just to bring your energy levels back to a neutral space, so then you can clearly set. So you can do this before speaking to someone, or before doing a gig, or before seeing a client, or before doing a photo shoot, or anything like that that's going to require you to be in yourself. Is to just take 3 deep breaths and you'll be cleared. You can clear yourself with the breath. Because you think about it, we're breathing in and we're opening and expanding, and then we're relaxing and letting go. So then our whole body is like, we've let go of everything because we've opened to every part of it, and then we've been able to release it all. So breath can be used in those 2 ways, and you can almost start with breath, clearing, do the intention, feel the feeling, and then come back to breath to amplify. So breath can be used to clear, and it can be used to amplify. And there's probably a million other things that breath can do. I think it can do everything. There's like chapters and books written on the yawning, and it's like one of the most complex processes we can do, and releases all these different chemicals within our brain. It's pretty wild just from a yawn. Actually opens up a different part of your throat. You can look at it, yawning. So and it's contagious, and I think that's consciousness communicating with us. When you like talk about yawning or think about yawning and then you yawn, it's like it's a way of consciousness connecting in. And they say that sociopaths are the ones that stop themselves from yawning, which is an interesting concept. But within this intention field as well, what we want to do is also drop into asking permission. Again, just to get that backing. So like we did when we were in the ether, is like asking permission and asking for guidance. We want to ask permission. So set the intention, feel it, and then say, am I allowed to do this? Yeah, totally. Yawning. I just read a message that said, Alicia said it made me yawn, and then made me yawn again. It's like a fractal. But yeah, asking permission just amplifies, because you're asking permission to consciousness to do what you're consciously doing. And again, you can be aware of like whether there's resistance, or whether you say no, and it's like, well, where does the no come from? But just to check in and make sure that the thing you're intending is what's meant to be happening. And again, be playful in Air Week, because you can intend things. Intend for someone to bring you a cup of coffee, or an ice cream, or a chocolate bar, or something like that, and see what works and what does, and how your powers will be used for the highest good. That's one key. But in Air Week, we can play, because it's quite changeable. Things are just going to be changing all the time. And when we move into fire, we're going to be a little bit more specific and a bit more focused, if you like. So while we're in air and we're still quite dense and spread out, play, have fun with it, feel good. So the last in the intentions is something that's really fun, that if you guys have followed much of Abraham Hicks's stuff, you might have come across segment intending, which essentially is breaking your day up into segments and taking control of that. So for example, like you break your day into segments, like, okay, so I wake up, and then I go, okay, cool, I'm going to wake up, and then I'm going to do my meditation, and I'm going to be really clear after my meditation. So then you get up, you do your meditation, and you feel clear after your meditation, and you acknowledge that that segment has ended. Cool. And now I'm going to have breakfast. I'm going to have a smoothie. It's going to be super tasty and nourishing to my whole body. Then you go and make yourself a smoothie, and it's nourishing to your whole body, and you're like, cool, that segment's ended. And then you go, now I'm going to drive to the shops, and when I'm driving, I'm going to have it clear and safe drive. You get in the car, you drive to the shops, you get to the shops and it was clear and it was safe, and you acknowledge it. So these segments may seem really little, but what you're doing is you're working that manifestation, that intention muscle, and you're building up a momentum. So I almost feel like those gurus and that can manifest something out of the palm of their hand, it's like they probably wake up and they're so like constantly intending on their day from every little bit to like, yeah, I'm now gonna like make my shoelace, or do whatever, always like intending, to the point where they get so far in that process that when they go, and now I have an apple in my hand, then an apple appears in their hand. It takes that practice of almost what some might see as the mundane, or I'm not going to do that. It's like it takes that to build up the momentum to really become one of those like master creators, I feel. And that's where that devotion and that dedication and that discipline come in, where people do take full charge to cause effects. And a good example of that is like people who speak to the parking fairy to get parking. I don't know if you've ever noticed that. Like, if you leave the house and you go, I'm going to manifest the perfect park at the shopping center or at the beach or wherever I am. If you set it before you go home, like before you leave, when you get there and you reflect on it again, you're more likely to find one really quick. Or if you do it all the time, you'll find that the people who keep on doing the parking fairy thing, they're really good at manifesting. So you'll see they'll always just get a parking fairy. So the last minute they'll just be like, boom, I'm going to get a park. So that's what segment intending is. So I highly encourage you guys to do that, and yeah, to practice the segment intentions. And then we move into movement to manifestation. So again, it's embodying the feelings, embodying and feeling your intentions now. So that's part of the process of really connecting in with your intention, and feeling it, embodying it, that will really bring it about to really move the manifestation so much quicker. The other one is the healing power of touch. So because it's tactile, like, and touch is feeling, it's like also touching your body and getting used to what it feels like and how it likes to be touched and what feelings you want to feel. As well as in Air Week, it's a good time to get a massage, to get someone to give you a massage. Go get some massage. And when you're getting a massage, become aware of your breath during the massage and notice how that can change and how the healing can flow. It's it's a powerful practice. So I have there, change is inevitable, transformation is a choice. So again, change is going to happen anyway, but we have to choose to transform. So it's in air where we're setting the intentions that we are choosing to transform, which is where we move into the fire. And we'll talk more about fire next week. And the other statement there is, remember you always have your next breath, which is something that super like blew my mind. Like years ago, I was at a festival, and I was in like a pretty open-minded space and walking around, really like focusing on my breath and checking things out. And I remember seeing this old hippie guy, and I said to him, "Hey brother, how are you?" And he said, "Yeah, I always have my next breath." And I was like, whoa. And I started to really think about it that way, and starting to breathe in what I wanted and then exhale, with and watch. And it was like I was watching reality, like me breathe in my intentions and then breathe it out and experience it. So always know that no matter what happens in life, you always have your next breath to actually change the reality. Because it's a constantly changing reality, with each breath, we have the ability to change our vibration, change our conditioning to actually have a different experience. And it comes down to the breath as well. Cool. So moving on to some air practices. This week, what I invite you guys to do is to witness your natural rhythm. So just coming to that practice of witnessing how you naturally breathe. Are you a belly breather? Are you a chest breather? Are you a shallow breather? Are you a deep breather? Just starting to know. And there's different types of breathing. There's long and slow. There's long and fast. There's fast and shallow. There's slow and shallow. There's different ways that people breathe. But just to witness your natural rhythms and connect in with them. So this is all mindful breathing. The other one is to practice breath awareness. So this is just, again, being aware of your breath, like when you're going for a walk or when you're washing the dishes or when you're driving the car. And in that awareness, be aware of how your body changes when you pay attention to your breath. So that's another one. Taking deep breaths, like the deep yogic breath, is something that's really good to practice. So breathing into your belly first, expanding that, and then once that's full, into your chest, and then let it go through the chest and then into the belly, and just practicing expanding the belly, the chest, just seeing how much more air you can actually fit in. And the other one is that inhaling love and exhaling gratitude. Try to do that as much as you can and just see how it feels. How does it clear your being when you are inhaling that love and exhaling gratitude? So that's a really, really fun practice. The second practice is intention setting. So in this section, what we're going to be doing is connecting in with your fundamental intention. So this one's really fun. So in your meditations or when you're journaling, just take a moment to ask the question, what is my fundamental intention? So a lot of people look for their purpose, and there's a lot of different things, but the fundamental intention, like what is your intention of life and of being here? Is it to just bring love? What is it to do? So for me, when I did this exercise the very first time, it sort of just happened to me after meditation, I found that what happened was I dropped into this space and I was like, my intention is to love all and serve all. And all of a sudden I just like tapped out. I was like, whoa. And I remember like coming back from meditation being like, whoa, what just happened there? And I was like, so what was I doing? What was my fundamental intention? And I was like, to love all and to serve all. And again, I dropped off and I was like, whoa, that was really interesting. And the third time when it happened, I realized that to love all and to serve all, it's like when I contemplated that was my intention, it gave me a little more insight. And what I got from that was that every single person that I meet, we have the opportunity to love them and serve them. Whether we can actually offer them anything or not, it might just be just to send them love. You know, like you might see someone and you might be able to help them, but they may not be ready to receive it. So you can also just be of service to them by allowing them to go and just being like sending love. So that was a big thing that I found from really tapping into what my fundamental intention is. So the other thing with intention setting is to be clear. So we can do that with the breath, is clearing the body. Use the present spelling. So that's bring it into a positive moment now. And the third one is to really feel it, so to embody it. So to play around with those. I mean, you can rewrite these, but just play around with setting the intentions. The other one is asking permission. So again, connecting in with the ether, because the ether is the fundamental field of intentionality. When we're setting intentions, we want to connect in with that field, because intention isn't just something that we set, it's something that we connect to. And once we connect to that field, then reality is going to flow on that field. So it's really good to keep that connection with the ether, because it is the field, if that makes sense. So to keep up the ether practices, so we keep that relationship with ether going. And the fourth one in intention settings is allow yourself to have full expressive, creative expression. So in Air Week, we really want to be being creative as possible. So play around with intentions, see what you can do, see if you can make love hearts in the clouds by setting an intention and feeling what it would feel like when you see that love heart form in the clouds. What's that emotion going to feel like? That's just play around with it. And what you find is when you're asking permission, we can create whatever we want as long as it doesn't interrupt with the natural laws. So things that nature needs to happen, as long as we're not interrupting that, we can have whatever we want. It's like an unwritten rule. So be creative with it, but ask permission. So follow all those guidelines, but then allow yourself to be creative in whatever way you want and really have fun with it. Cool. Well, if you guys have any questions around air, please let me know. You can comment below and share any of your experiences. And we will see you next week for fire. All right. Much love.